The HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is fueled by Eukanuba. If you want to get the most of your dog in your training sessions, you need nutrition that holds nothing back. Eukanuba's new premium performance lineup is built with the nutrients dogs need to help unleash their max potential. That starts with providing energy that matches their efforts, supporting optimal nutrient delivery, and supporting post-exercise recovery. Check out the new Eukanuba Premium Performance lineup and find your dog's fuel at eukanubasportingdogs.com. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. The HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast is powered by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos that includes everything you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for the free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. Soundgear is offering a 35% discount to the HP Outdoors listeners for their instant fit industrial and shooter products. You can head over to soundgearhearing.com and use the promo code HPOWP35 to claim your discount today. Lifetime Decoy's new Flex Float Mallard decoys set the new standard for quality and durability in waterfowl decoys. An EVA foam, open bottom construction combined with patent-pended dual flow swim keel system allows for more movement and less wind, the ability to sit flat on ice and dirt, and virtually indestructible design which can be shot or otherwise punctured and still float. Each decoy weighs only 11 ounces with the self-righting keel weights removed or 19 ounces with the weights installed. Check them out today at lifetimedecoys.com. Lucky Duck, about the only creature they can't deceive is you. Lucky Duck is more than a brand, it's a lifestyle built around the subtle art of critter deception. So while you're focused on the business end of your shotgun or rifle, know that they're completely focused on what matters most, you. So whether you're in a duck blind, dove field, on a predator stand, or chasing turkeys, they're confident that their products will help you succeed. Check out their full lineup at luckyduck.com and keep up with their latest news by following them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right, welcome to episode 203 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Palm, and we are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. You can check us out at hpoutdoors.com. You can find our show where any quality podcast content can be found: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all the good ones. You can find our show. You can also catch us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're a Facebook user, you can head over there, check out our listeners group, and chat with a lot of like-minded hunters and my co-host, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's up, man?
Dude, I do love our group, and usually off seasons are really bad, but it hasn't gotten bad yet this year. So I'm liking that. I'm also liking a recent purchase I made. It's not an ad not in our advertising.
This took literally 5 seconds for you to get into
5 seconds. The Blackstone griddle is amazing. If you're into that kind of cooking, which I am, great purchase.
You're like a wannabe Instagram influencer. I get so many food pics of you cooking now.
I'm gonna send so many more in the future days.
Just blocking you.
So you're not blocking me at all.
Well, you know what? I have a recommendation. Here's a recommendation for you.
I'm going to make some tacos for you. How about that?
You can also send pictures of your tacos to our guest joining us tonight, all the way from the great north, Ben Webster. Ben, what's up, bud?
What's going on, guys? Live from quarantine 2021.
Yeah, we're interested to talk to you about how that's going. And obviously you're up in Canada right now, gearing up for spring snows. So we'll get into some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, talk about, a different experience for you this time around. Obviously fall was a no-go up there. So I have to imagine that you're at least somewhat excited or happy to be back up there. But, the restrictions have made it really tough on you guys. Maybe talk a little bit, just for the people that don't know, sort of what the requirements are for you right now to even get up there to do some spring hunting.
So obviously we're going to be running Canadian residents only. We did a sales special to book as many guys as we could to kind of salvage this spring season. And it's kind of looking like we might have to do that this fall, but fingers crossed the border opens. But as of right now, The only way American can get across is if you're an essential worker or if you have a work visa or, obviously own a business like we do. So we had to have a negative molecular COVID test 72 hours before we arrived at the border. They basically wouldn't even talk to you until you had that negative test. And then we crossed, did our work visa, did all our paperwork, did a search if they wanted to search us. And then they give us 2 home tests. And as soon as we got to the lodge on night 1, we had to create an account, log in, a nurse comes on, she directs you through you self-test for COVID-19, and then they come and pick it up and, send you the results. So, and then we just did day 10 test, so we don't have our results back, but so far everybody's been negative. Everything's good, so hopefully that remains the same. And even if our test results come back for day 10 negative, we still have to finish out 14 days of quarantine before we are allowed to leave our place of quarantine. So pretty crazy. It kind of puts a really big damper. Usually, super excited to get up here, super happy to be up here, but it just doesn't feel the same. So hopefully that changes in the next 4 days. But it's been hasn't been terrible, I guess, but it could be a lot better. So
before we get into too much depressing talk, some depressing news for probably our female listeners. Ben recently got married, so congrats on that. And I got to partake in those festivities in Kansas, and it was a great trip out there and a beautiful day, man. So that was a long time coming, I think, and a really fun time.
I appreciate it. It was a blast, phenomenal day. I know the wife's super, super happy about it, so it's good. I think everyone had a good time. Now it's time for the fun stuff. Time to get back to killing, right?
So you go on a honeymoon to Canada where you have to quarantine for 14 days. And we talked a little bit before we started recording, but if you do test positive, what's the steps there?
Well, if we test positive on the test that we took this morning, we have to quarantine for 14 more days. But we don't have to take any more tests. We don't have to deal with, logging on. And I mean, we have to get on an app every single day and log in our symptoms and let them know that we're abiding by the Quarantine Act laws and regulations. And if we test positive, we're basically done with that, but they'll still call and check in on us. They've called me 3 times in the last 10 days, checking in, making sure we're abiding by, the quarantine laws and making sure we don't have any sickness and making sure we're able to get food and fresh air. And it's been pretty crazy, super, super strict compared to the States. So
my next question is like, how, I mean, cause we've been to your camp up there and it's a small town. How do they know that you are not out scouting birds and you're actually, abiding by the rules?
Well, they definitely ping your cell phone. Hunter Pickett's up here with me, and he's friends with some guys north of the Quill Lakes, and they're residents. But one of them got COVID this spring, or earlier this spring, and had to do a 10-day quarantine. And he goes to college in Alberta. Well, on day 9, he decided to drive back, and he got 30 minutes from home. They called him, asked him where he was going, and told him if he doesn't turn around and go back to his place of quarantine, they'll come get him themselves. So it's not anything to mess around with. We've been super strict about it. We don't even let the grocery people carry groceries in. We make them drop them at the door, and it's not worth it. If you're found breaking the rules, it's a $3,000 fine, and it can be upwards of $750,000 fine, especially if someone gets sick or dies, and there's even possible prison time. So haven't ventured out. So
did you have to sign any sort of like consent to monitoring when you came in there? Because I mean, I can't imagine that as a U.S. citizen that they're able to just ping your phone all over the place. I mean, I could see that I mean, I guess without your consent, right? But
who knows? I have no idea. I mean, we didn't sign anything. I mean, they told us at the border what's going on. This, and this. Here's the rules. Here's what you have to do. They're going to be checking in on you. They might even send a officer to check on you, make sure you're quarantining. And then obviously, the biggest worry is not them pinging my phone. It wouldn't be an officer coming. Your biggest worry is you're in a town of about 1,000 people and every single person has a cell phone now, right? So it's not even worth it to attempt it because there's always someone that doesn't like you, and there's always someone that's super worried about coronavirus and whatnot. So it's just better to stay in quarantine and deal with it. It sucks. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense why we can't, hop in a truck and go for a drive. The three of us, we're all quarantining together anyway, but they don't trust you to do that, right? They don't trust you to not stop and get fuel or stop and talk to a farmer or whatever. So that's why they're super strict. You don't leave, you stay on your property, blah, blah, blah. So,
right.
And, you kind of mentioned a little bit, but what is Benjamin Webster's forecast for the fall hunting season for U.S. citizens going to Canada?
I am not super optimistic. I'm trying to stay optimistic, and that's what I should be doing. I pray we get to come up and hunt, and hopefully they start pumping out some vaccinations. But if I were to make a call as of now with what I'm dealing with and what I'm seeing up here, I would say no, it's not going to open. But they're supposed to be getting a bunch of vaccinations in, so hopefully they start pumping those out, and hopefully they start seeing some decline in numbers like the States are, and you never know. So I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible. So we'll see what happens.
So what does this, shifting gears here a little bit to actually, hunting birds, talk a little bit about what it's like up there hunting birds in April. What, obviously you're running a little bit reduced hunts this year, but on a typical year, what time of the year are birds starting to move back into that area? Just sort of a little bit of like kind of what a client would expect on a normal year going up there to hunt with you in the spring.
Yeah, so typically we don't start running hunts till about April 15th to April 20th, just given on what the weather's doing. This year they actually showed up really early. We actually saw them flying over the lodge 6 days ago. I think we were in day 4 of quarantine when we saw our first snow geese. We're allowed to be on our property, so we got a little rock pad behind the lodge that we try and get some fresh air on and let the dogs run around. And we're seeing quite a few right now, so it's a little early probably, but typically we're running hunts by April 15th. We run really small spreads, anywhere from 8 to 15 dozen full bodies. Typically we hide from an edge. We don't use a bunch of motion, and we run an e-collar on low, and typically we're landing adults. So basically everything you know about spring snows in the States, throw it out the window because it's night and day difference up here.
What's the weather like up there right now, temperature wise and all that?
The highest we've seen in 10 days is 64, and the lowest was 39 as far as the high. The lowest it's gotten is 19 at night. And it's supposed to, this next coming week, we're supposed to be mid-30s for 3 or 4 days, but then we jump back into the 50s and 60s. So it should level out pretty nice once we start hunting.
Do you run any water hunts? Do you do any of that, or are you primarily field hunting?
Not typically. Typically we're just field hunting in the morning, in the afternoon. I'm not big on hunting water, period. I mean, I do it down in Kansas when I have to, and we do it up here in the fall when we have to. But, anyone that knows anything about waterfowl is if your birds can feel safe, at least on their water, then they're going to stick around longer. That being said, I'm not against hunting a true loaf, something they're hitting just to hang out in the afternoon, or, they could be hitting the water first in the late afternoon before they walk out and feed, something like that. We would definitely do that. But for the most part, it's just field hunting.
And unlike the States, you guys do have to run with plugs in the guns, and your limit, it's 20 birds a person, right?
Yep. So you can only shoot three shells, just like the States in the fall. I mean, you can run an e-collar, but you can only shoot 20 birds. But people are like, oh well, that's not enough. Well, to shoot 20 birds, you have to shoot into 7 flocks perfectly. You have to go 20 for 21 out of 7 flocks to shoot your 20 birds. So I would say, 9 out of 10 guys are going to have plenty of shooting, on a spring snow goose hunt up here. It's phenomenal. And I actually prefer it that way instead of dumping a plug, because then you actually know, who shot what. It's just more of a romantic hunt instead of just dumping a plug, everyone dumping a plug, and there's 150 shells being thrown around. You got cripples, all over the place. It's more of a traditional hunt here in the spring.
I can see, so Josh and I are on video, and Ben's calling in because his internet is apparently worse than mine, which I don't believe, but when Ben was just talking, I can see in Josh's head, he's just wanting to scream, run it to the plug the entire time.
Well, I do find it I find it interesting though, because, in the States, it seems like the big narrative, at least, for a long time, has been, the snows do so much damage and they're, overpopulating, and just, you can't kill enough of them. And it seems like, the spring in Canada would be a great time to really put a hammer on them, especially if you're landing adults. I mean, you could really do a dent, so to speak, if that was the goal. Is that no longer the goal, or is it just a different management strategy up there for some reason?
Well, number one, you got gun laws to play into factor, correct? So even if they allowed you to have no plugs, you still would only be allowed to have 4 shells in your magazine and 1 in your chamber. You're only allowed 5. So a plug is actually prohibited, or a extension tube is prohibited. It's considered a non-restricted firearm, and 9 out of 10 people do not have their licensing to carry that firearm. So a extension tube up here is a big no-no in general. I don't really know why they have a limit on it. I've never, really asked a biologist up here what their thought process is behind it. But Alberta's 50. So a lot of guys like to go hunt in Alberta, but Saskatchewan's closer. So that's what really helps, people stop here. But I want you to think about it. You're with 6 guys, you shoot 120 snow geese, and you can only shoot 3 shots per go. That's a lot of shooting.
No doubt.
No one's going to be disappointed with that.
It's a great day.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. No question.
So I mean, just walk me through it. Like, here in the US, when there's a bad hatch and everyone says, there's no grays in the group, there's no young ones, and it's a really difficult season landing adults, right? Like, it's just, they're wary. And what happens when they cross that border? How does that work out?
There's a switch that's flipped, and I don't know why. Guys used to tell me that. I never believed them, and then I came up here and I'm like, this is unreal. Like, there's nothing like it. They don't act the same. They fly low. They fly in smaller groups. You're not typically going to get that big 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 bird spin. You're going to be, landing flocks of 25 to 50, sometimes 100, over and over and over again. So I don't know what the flip of the switch is or when it is, but I'm assuming a lot of it has to do with it's time to breed, and it's time to eat. And the reason they're going to eat, they're going to get as fat as they possibly can because they're going to make that last long flight back to the tundra over the forest. And it's going to be a long haul for them. And there's not a lot to eat on the way. And then, breeding's on their mind. Well, you know how men are when we think about breeding. So I don't know if that's it, but that's the only two things that I can really think of.
Yeah, it's almost like a survival mode, like when they travel because they get pushed out of an area and there's no food and no open water, then almost like it's better to be in numbers and you get those giant flocks and those huge spins, right? And then they feel comfortable when they're on their way back and they're like, this is home, I can chill out and not worry so much. And
there's definitely way less hunting pressure up here.
Yeah.
Way less. I mean, because especially now, you don't have all those, guides running around taking hundreds of clients through their camp in a month. You don't have that up here. Along with all the locals and jumping snows like that really doesn't happen. So I think a lot of it has to do with we need to feed. Because we'll shoot snow geese, and if they're somewhat high up, they'll split open and they'll have ½ inch to an inch of fat on their chest. It's gross. Cleaning snow geese up here in the spring is disgusting.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you're probably onto something there. I think that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really thought about the breeding aspect of it, but I mean, I always refer back to this, to the interview that we did like 100 years ago with Sean Stahl, but he said some things in there that have just like really resonated with me. And one of them was, a bird's whole day and their whole life is just about food, water, and surviving till tomorrow. And, their cycles of how they do that, is triggered by various things throughout the year, so they just know if they don't breed now and they wait too long or whatever, it's unlikely that the birds will be mature enough to be able to migrate when things freeze up and they can't feed. So I think there is a lot to be said to that. And they just get more desperate to stay on schedule as the season, gets into the spring. So I think you're probably onto something there. Go ahead.
Another question on that. I'm kind of interested, Ben, on during your normal year, not COVID affected, what's your percentage of Canadian clients versus American clients?
1%.
I'm just thinking it's just crazy. Like, are there a lot of people interested in doing that now? Like, I mean, just from a business standpoint, it seems like you guys have been put through the ringer, right? Like you got blindsided by this, and it's not. I don't know. It just seems like it's very difficult.
Well, it's going to be
on your end.
It's rough for every outfitter. I mean, the big game guys. I mean, Americans were, a huge tourism aspect of this country.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up here for hunting or for sightseeing, I mean, that was something that really boosted their economy. So, not only the waterfowl guys are hurting, the fishing guys are hurting. I mean, everyone's hurting. There's a lot of guys that are, probably hanging up the towel. And if it goes another year, I think we'll see way more of that. And it's really putting the outfitters and the clients between a rock and a hard place because, majority of the guys have deposits in and they're non-refundable deposits. And, if you're a decent outfitter, you're, not giving their deposit back, but you're pushing them and saying, look, when it opens, you cost, right? You still have, your lodge bill and your utilities and, lawyer fees because, it's expensive to get work visas and your insurance and you have all that overhead, but you have no money coming in. So you're living off those deposits right now. So there's going to be a lot of guys, if this thing doesn't open up this fall, that aren't going to be around anymore because they're not going to be able to afford to. So it'll be really interesting to see how the next year plays out. I'm hoping, guys can hang on, figure out another way to, make some money and keep the business afloat. But, clients need to, take that into consideration that, this blindsided everybody. I mean, we were booking hunts November, December, January, not even, considering that, okay, the border's not going to open. Like that wasn't even a thought in our mind. So,
and even,
it is what it is. It's new uncharted territory for everyone, outfitter and client, both. So everyone's just got to, try to be as morally, ethical as we possibly can and make it work for both parties. Right. So.
And I mean, you're talking guides and stuff like that, but a lot of these small towns, like, I don't know how many guides you guys or how many clients you run through there in a season, but I mean, even the grocery store across the road, right? Like guys stopping in there and getting snacks and drinks and buying stuff at the local shops. And I mean, that's countrywide that these people, American citizens go up there and spend a lot of, I don't know what that figure is, but I know they spend a lot of money, and the hunting side is so small compared to just the straight tourism going and seeing just the nature of Canada. So I mean, it seems, and before we started talking, you said that Canada's like, I don't know the different levels of shutdown, but they're kind of high right now, right?
Yeah, they just went to a level 4. As far as I'm understanding, Ontario and Alberta just went back into stay-at-home orders. And the CDC is telling Americans, even if you are vaccinated, do not travel to Canada. So that is not good. I haven't really looked into the numbers. I've been trying to avoid the doomsday news, and it's just not good for your mind. But hopefully, they're only at 6% with vaccinations right now. They're almost 15% behind us. So hopefully they can start really kicking those out, and things will turn around for them. But people are definitely hurting up here. I know that. So,
and it seemed like in the fall,
I
was gonna say, it seemed like in the fall it was kind of backwards. Like we were getting talked down to kind of from Canadian government that we weren't doing stuff correct, right? And now it's kind of hitting them harder than when we're opening up. Like you mentioned, the Rangers had 40,000 people at their stadium with no mask.
Yeah, I'm up here in quarantine. I've passed 2 COVID tests, and I'm not allowed to leave. But yet, in Texas, 40,000 people just attended a baseball game and had a great time. Like the world's turning again in other places, but it seems like the places that aren't turning are doing the worst, right? So maybe the herd immunity was a real thing. And that's what this whole COVID thing's been so wild for me, is trying to wrap your head around what our elected officials are doing, because they say they're following the science, but their actions aren't following the science. So I don't know. Hopefully things get better over the summer for everybody, wherever you are, and we can get this world turning again.
Well, I definitely think seasonality has something to do with it. Even if you look back to last summer, the numbers came down quite a bit. So it's not a surprise to me that Canada is slow, their numbers are turning slower than ours, given just geographic location, and a lot of areas in the south of the United States are doing well for a lot of reasons. But one certainly that isn't going to hurt would be the seasonality in the warm up, which helped with all that stuff. So hopefully that'll help and get them in a better position for the summer to try to maybe get some things going in the fall, because Dan and I grew up in the same area, really tiny small towns, but I knew tons of people growing up that would go to Canada for spring bear hunting. They'd go up there for fishing trips. I mean, tons of people go up there for fishing trips, because we didn't live that far from the Canadian border. So you could go up for a long weekend easily and go walleye fishing or pike fishing or whatever you wanted to do. So it really does, kind of impact a great, the hunting thing is one that, it does impact both small towns and big cities, right? I mean, you get people in the cities that hunt, like, I live in DC area, and a lot of people, hunt around here and go on destination hunts like Kansas or Canada or whatever, they can't do it. Small town people like where we grew up would just drive an hour or an hour and a half and be across the border. They can't do it. So it really is kind of reaching across all those areas, which just sucks in general. So, hopefully, hopefully it gets better, right? I mean, we haven't really seen a lot of communication to this end in the States, but has the Canadian government put out anything that you're aware of that would like serve as some sort of benchmarks where it would give some sort of glimmer of hope that the fall could be, something that, people could consider if certain levels are reached or anything like that? Or are they still just kind of like,
I have no idea. I've heard rumors, and I've actually heard it from multiple people that they're hoping to open in August, but you obviously will have to be fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
So, which doesn't surprise me one bit. But right now, if I were fully vaccinated, I would still have to jump through all these hoops. There's no exception. So who knows? It's, Canada is a totally different, country than the United States is. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. So,
yeah.
So going back to your Kansas outfit, with people not being able to cross the border, did you see more people trying to come and hunt with you? Did you see a lot more guides just have, full books this season?
I could have quadruple booked.
Yeah, just everyone wanted.
My phone rang off the hook. I think multitude of reasons, right? People are wanting to get out and do something. Let's go hunting. We can't get COVID hunting, and we'll go hunting. Get out in the fresh air, do something, get out of the damn house. And then also, the border was closed, so everyone's trips got canceled, and everyone, last second, where can we go? Let's call Kansas. Let's call, I was sending people to other outfitters in Kansas, and, they were booked too. So, I mean, it was great for all the outfitters. Obviously you don't like to see that for some of the guys that shouldn't be running hunts, because there's just, you feel like they're taking people's money, but that's part of the business. So obviously I've told everyone here 100 times, do your homework before you go with an outfitter, ask for references, and find out how long they've been, hunting in that state and in that area, and go from there before you just book a hunt because they're in Kansas and showed you a couple piles of greenheads.
So let's talk a little bit about the season in Kansas, because, it wasn't too long ago. I guess it's 2 years ago now. Everyone was complaining about the migration, and it was in the whole, I can't even remember what that group was that kind of started up, that was basically blaming Habitat Flats and everybody for stopping the migration. I think last year everyone kind of said, felt that the migration was pretty strong. What, in your opinion, how was it this year overall?
Overall, really good. We had a phenomenal season again. Not so much on the ducks. We did well on ducks early, and then it kind of got stale on us. We got really warm in December, had a full moon. We'd watch ducks, and they wouldn't even be feeding until 10 minutes after sunset. So, not much we could do there. But the ducks really didn't show up until we got that extreme cold snap in February, and that's where we really got, a monster push of ducks, which is great to see, and shows you how important it is that it gets cold and, ice and, snow up north. Majority of, Nebraska and the Dakotas didn't have much snow this year. So if they can get to their food, they're going to stay where they're at as long as they got water and a food source. They'll stay there as long as possible. So that's why I would assume that, the ducks aren't pushing like they used to. But the lessers and cranes, was phenomenal. And, we finished strong all the way till, we were done with spring snows. So it was a good season. The guys did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, usually, you usually talk about Dustin Jones down in Oklahoma, and you guys will talk back and forth because you guys will get some cold weather and it'll push your birds out, and he'll get all those birds, and then it'll warm up and you get the birds back from the south. And it just seems like that wasn't the case this year.
Not at all. He had a pretty rough season. He battled warm temperatures and really stale ducks a lot of the Oklahoma season. So kind of feel bad for him, but it's the nature of the beast, right? Every year is different. You can't even compare one year to the other year. I mean, they're so drastically different. That's why it's such a fun sport, because even though you think you know what's going on, they throw you another curveball, and it's just makes it fun.
And that's why they call it hunting. Even with a ton of birds around, it's not always easy.
So, managing the whole COVID thing this year in Kansas was kind of, something you had to adjust for on the fly. Do you foresee that being the thing again this fall? And, is there anything that, people can do, or, what things that you found that were helpful? Kind of like, did you find, like, were there guys coming from states that were more restrictive? Like, cause I know, again, just for me, like baseball tournaments was a thing that we did a lot. And it was like, we weren't going places because certain states had, like, you had to quarantine to go there and come back, kind of like you're talking about. Was there anything that you kind of saw happening throughout the fall that, if we got to deal with COVID stuff here in the States again this fall, that you'd recommend for people looking to come out there and hunt?
Just know where you're coming from. We had, I don't know, 3 or 4 groups that canceled on us, about a month out, which is great. If you're going to cancel on an outfitter, give them a month. Give them a month to book your date. And a lot of guys are going to give you a deposit back if they can book, or they're at least going to push you to next year. And it helps that way. No one's out money, right? But other than that, I mean, there weren't really any issues because people didn't care. Majority of, the guys coming are conservatives, and they don't care. They want to get out. They want to do something. They're tired of someone telling them they have to do this and they have to do that, or they're going to die when, everyone's got 10 friends that had COVID and none of them have died. Not making light of the people that have, passed away from COVID, but, people die every day. Very unfortunate part of life, but you got to continue living. You just can't live in a turtle shell your whole life. So I rarely had anyone that had any issues at my lodge. I had masks out, sat on the countertop right when you walk in with hand sanitizer. The hand sanitizer was 3/4 full, and there was maybe only a few masks taken out of that box. So, we gave the protocols for the guys. If they wanted to do it, great. If not, that was perfectly up to them. It didn't bother me one bit. But as far as Kansas, I mean, we're wide open right now. Governor tried to pass a mask mandate. Congress shut that down in 3 days real quick, said no masks. So I don't foresee that changing, not for our state anyway. So, but we did have some guys, like I said, cancel because they would have had to quarantine to come home or get a negative test, and they just didn't want to deal with it. So who knows, man? It's hard to talk about it because it changes every 2 weeks. They make up some new law, and now you got to wear 2 masks. Now pretty soon you're gonna have to wear a bubble suit, to go to work. Who knows what's going to happen? Like we're just burning hot air right now because everything's going to change in 6 months. So.
Well, and I will say, when Dan and I came out there in the fall, it was kind of like the first time. I think Dan maybe traveled once or twice for work, but it was definitely my first time kind of going somewhere and doing something to that extent during like the COVID era, right? Because we were just kind of sort of just coming out of that shutdown period. So yeah, our wives were nervous about, what was going on. So just because we didn't know, there was a lot of unknowns at that time. So hopefully this fall, there'll be a little more information available. People can be more educated, make their own decisions, at least, prepare or whatever to the level that they're comfortable with. So if they were hesitant about last fall, hopefully people will be better in a better frame of mind to do something this fall. And if they feel they need to do certain safeguards, they'll know what they need to do.
Yeah, I mean, I told all my clients, you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want, my staff to wear a mask, we will wear a mask. That's not a problem, whatever. We're here to make your trip as enjoyable as possible. And keep in mind, if you're hesitant on booking a trip because you don't want to be at the lodge with a bunch of strangers, ask your outfitter if he's got a no lodging, no meals package, just the hunting. You go hunting, you're outside, you can go get your own Airbnb with your group, the people or, a hotel. And if that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that at all. We're all grown-ups, just like you said. You can make your own decisions, and that's, really how this needs to be handled from here on out, in my opinion. But so just, keep that in mind. Don't not go because you're worried about it. Go and just be smart about it.
Yeah. And, even, usually when we go out and we'll share lunch together or something like that, and you had your guys, stay separate from the hunters and unless you're out on a hunt. And I think that was, being proactive and doing everything you could. So I don't know, man. Hopefully the border opens up and you guys can, keep everything running. And I just feel bad on that business aspect because, like you said, so much overhead, no income, and it has to start hurting after a while. So,
well, we're pumped. I mean, I know we've got a few open dates, and we've had some hunters that have actually booked. I mean, there's people that are definitely super optimistic, and it's great to see. The lodge is completely finished. I mean, we're ready, and it's going to be phenomenal, if it does open. So, keep that in mind. But we'll see what happens. There's just too many unknowns, really. I don't want to tell people it's going to open. They go book a trip, and then they're mad because they listen to this podcast, and it got pushed back. But who knows? So, fingers crossed to everybody.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hopefully, quarantine wraps up here for you and you get ready to go and you get some good hunting in and stuff. And wish you guys best of luck. We'll definitely keep tabs on you guys up there. If you want to check out Ben's outfit up in Canada, Prairie Limits Outfitters, you can check them out on social media and all that good stuff. Ben, man, we appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Sounds good, fellas. Thank you very much.
That's going to do it for this episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out some of our past episodes, and while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It's the best way for like-minded hunters just like you to find our show. Check us out on social media, check us out over at hpoutdoors.com, and anywhere you can find quality podcast content. That's going to do it for this week. Till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.